Welcome everybody to the MiniMapCast. This is minimap.com.au's weekly games podcast, your favorite weekly games podcast. My name is Kerry, and joining me, as always, is Jeremy.
Hello.
I saw you in person this week.
You did.
It was great.
You, just to completely bring you off topic immediately, you introduced us by first names and not last names this time, and I noticed it. And that's it.
Yeah, I vaguely noticed it, but not fully noticed it. But now that you've mentioned it, I can see that I definitely did do that.
Yeah, and that's fine. There is like nothing wrong with that at all, but it was a thing that happened and I'm acknowledging it.
There were two things that went into that, I think. One, I wanted to like get through the intro quickly.
Okay.
Because this whole time we've been setting up the show and like talking to chat, we've been like barely talking about Zelda, and I want to be actually talking about Zelda.
Okay, I was going to ask why I decided to change up the formula for the first time 153 episodes in.
But also, I didn't have the script up. And I had it. It was fine. But I was...
Back to fundamentals.
Like 5 to 7% of my brain was sitting there going, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up. I'm also now realizing my microphone's on the wrong setting. You know, yeah. So it's just all of that. That's why.
Look, it's a live show. There's a lot of cogs.
It's like standing up out of bed. You didn't get out on the wrong side of the bed, but you did put your feet into the wrong slippers. Like you put your right foot in your left slipper and you're like, oh fuck.
It's like putting on a pair of pants and you get like maybe like halfway, maybe a third of the way through, and you realize you've put your left foot in the right leg.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh well, this is right, okay, well I gotta undo this, but like then you think about it, like how did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, because if I did that, it means I didn't look.
Yep. It's I don't know what's worse, putting on a jumper backwards or a pair of pants.
Oh, jumper's easy because you just do the tuck in and then spin it.
Yeah, but which feels worse? You know, like which feels wronger?
I think pants.
See, my gut says shirt, but I think honestly, I just haven't put my pants on backwards in long enough that I can't properly recall what it feels like.
Well, for the most part, like jeans alleviate that issue because you like hold it by the front and the fly like is open, but like when it's tracksuit pants is when you accidentally do it wrong sometimes. Now,
while I do agree with you, as someone who has been working from home for the last 3 years, very rarely am I wearing pants with buttons.
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe I've outgrown putting on my pants backwards.
I'll get there one day.
Maybe I've ascended.
Yeah. Brag about it.
Let's stop talking about pants. Okay. Let's do the intro so we can start talking about Zelda. Happy Zelda week, everybody. We've just had 3 days with the game, 4-ish. It came out last Friday. It's currently Monday. And we're going to talk all about it. That is what this episode is about. If you don't want to hear about Tears of the Kingdom, this is not the episode for you. I recommend you come back later after you've played some of the game. So, for those who aren't aware, this is a MiniMapCast. This is minimap.com.au's weekly games podcast. The podcast goes live on all podcast platforms every Wednesday, with 24 hours of early access given to all of our wonderful patrons. More on that in a second. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to tell your friends and give the show a positive rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. It makes a huge difference. It only takes a few seconds. If you'd like to get notified every time a new episode is released, you can follow us on social media. We are the accounts for Minimap at MiniMapAU on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and also Twitch, where we are currently live. And we are live every night as we record the show, every Monday night, 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We always hang out with chat before and during and after. If you've got time or you're around or you like what you're listening to, come and hang out and chat and join in. I thought I had something else to say there, but I don't. There's nothing else in the script about that.
Great.
You know what it is? I've been inserting a shout out to the Discord impromptu off my brain, but it's not in the script.
Right. Yes.
So I didn't read it, and I'm like missing it, but I've never missed it because I've always done it off my brain, not the reading. Mm-hmm. There's a link to the Discord on our website as well. You can find the little Discord logo. We wanted to say thank you to Shook for letting us use the Moog Model D Improv as the music for the MiniMapCast. You can listen to more of Shook's music at shook.bandcamp.com. And finally, MiniMap is completely independent and funded almost entirely out of our own pockets. Independent is a hard word to say sometimes. To help keep the mics and lights on, you can support us by becoming one of our patrons. For only $5 a month, you get 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast, some bonus features like a little E3 watch-along, like old E3 press conference watch-along show that we've just started, some other ideas we've got cooking, and more. So you can head on over to patreon.com/minimapau to help us out. And remember, it's always cheaper and cheaper than a latte with oat milk.
It really is. It really fucking is.
So, Jeremy, how many hours have you put into Tears of the Kingdom since its release on Friday, 12 a.m.?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Switch doesn't tell you.
No, it doesn't. I think I'm sitting at around probably in the mid-20s, maybe a bit higher.
Right. That is a decent amount.
Yeah, so I took from work leave on Friday, so I could just play the game, because that's fun.
I'm especially interested in your opinion on the game. As someone who recently returned to Breath of the Wild and only enjoyed it for the first time, really, in comparison to when playing it when it came out and not enjoying it as much.
Yeah. This game. So it's fascinating, right? Because I was going into it with some level of genuine like excitement and like of the like wonder, right? Because one, I think the trailer that they put out about a month ago is like one of the best trailers Nintendo have ever put out. It's like
just saying something. You seen that Breath of the Wild trailer?
Yeah, and it's like it is like the game. It like stands shoulder to shoulder with it, and captures a level of adventure that is really hard to capture in games and in trailers. But knowing that it's like your adventure, because like for like a comparison would be like a God of War Ragnarok trailer, right? Like the adventure is solely Kratos and Atreus's adventure. Like it's their,
you're being told a story.
It's their thing. Whereas this is like this is you. Like you are like this motherfucker. Like you are him, and you will be experiencing all this shit. And so going into it, I'm like, oh, okay, like, all right, I'm gonna get into it again. This time on launch, whereas last time it wasn't on launch. For me at least.
Yeah, me either.
It was like that year, but it wasn't day one.
Same.
And so like jumping in, it was like, okay, this is gonna be a lot of what I know and a lot of new stuff. And almost immediately, I was like, oh, okay, they are swinging really hard for something very different for the first game.
Yeah.
From the first game. While also being like a direct sequel, which is just like that is not the easy way to do this sequel.
No, it really, really isn't.
The easiest way to do this sequel is to like replicate like pacing beats of like you're in a cave, you wake up, you come out, you got even with
they do some of that.
Yeah, I know, but even with the same abilities, it's like it's not like even with different abilities, they could throw you in that world and go like, hey, like here's another Breath of the Wild, like different map, same stuff, same here's all these like shrines, and your main goal is like beat the thing, but it's
and it's like a content expansion, right? Where it's like the same mechanics, maybe like an added like ice ability or something, or fire ability maybe, and like
whereas this time it is like, no, like we like. Do you remember the Legend of Zelda games after the first one? Remember when they became story? Do you remember A Link to the Past?
Do you remember this game?
And I'm sitting here going like, A Link to the Past. I know A Link to the Past.
Yeah,
I like that game. And what if they did that to what if this game is A Link to the Past in the same way that that Breath of the Wild is the first Legend of Zelda?
Yeah, wow.
Which is fucking wild, bro. They really did something here.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Playing the start, you have a very brief sort of like 10-minute introduction, essentially, which is a much more fleshed out version of the announcement trailer of Zelda and Link exploring the catacombs under the castle. And then you're put into this 3 to 4 hour tutorial area. Sounds familiar, where your progression forward is pretty directed, bit more directed in this one actually. You're kind of sent in a spiral a bit more.
Yeah,
you can't really work it the other way like you could on the Grand Plateau.
Yeah.
You kind of have to go the certain way on this, which I thought was interesting to make it a bit more focused, but still there's plenty of different ways to do things, and you can go and do side stuff on the way or find an optional area that you could just skip entirely. But for all the things it does similarly, there are so many things it does different.
Yeah, there's a vibe that both of these games have, and like this both does and doesn't feel like the first game in its tone. Whereas like it kind of reminds me of like, and you know, this is a very Jeremy line to draw, but like I'm like, oh, it's like the Blade Runner movie from the 80s, and then it's Blade Runner 2049. I'm like, and I can, you know,
it's still Blade Runner, but it is not the old Blade Runner.
Yeah, and it's not trying to be. It is, you know, respecting the old one and building off of the foundation while also not being the easy one, right? It is not the, you know, the Blade Runner movie via J.J. Abrams. You know, it is a Blade Runner movie that is like, what if we really made you fucking think? What if we made another one of these and gave you the same and gives you the same level of like brain engagement that the first one does, and makes you think what makes you think in similar patterns about different things as the first one. While not, it's this game is good, Kerry. I don't know if you've realized that yet, but this is a good video game.
It's so good. There was a moment last night where I was being silly. So Sam watched me play some and then not all of what I played. And so I was being silly and showing Sam that I could fuse stuff to my weapons and my shield. And I was like, oh, look, there's an explosive barrel here. I can just put that on my shield. Haha, isn't that silly? I don't actually know what's going to happen though. I don't know how that interacts in the world. I figure someone hits it when I'm guarding with my shield and then I explode and die.
Yeah. Yes.
Turns out that's not what happens. You are completely protected from the explosion.
Oh, that's cool.
With a barrel on your shield.
Yeah, right.
It fucks your shield up. You only get a couple of explosive. If you happen to attach another one to it, the second explosion will destroy it. But it allows you to direct the explosive barrel in front of you. Yeah. And so I did that a few times and like, that's funny. And then I showed Sam that I could I fused a bow to the front of my shield, which did absolutely nothing. It's completely useless. It's just a bow on my shield. And I was like, oh, sometimes that interferes with how you shield surf when you've got something weird on the front of it. The bow didn't do anything. And then Sam was like, oh, can you shield surf with the explosive barrel shield? I was like, oh yeah, well, this will probably fuck me up.
Does it send you rocketing up into the sky?
It sends you rocketing up, Jeremy.
Nice.
We're doing it. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. I jump. He spins around, gets on the shield, and then bounces straight into the sky. And Sam and I there were like, whoa! Like, there's so many little delights to find in this game.
Yeah, and it's you know, similar to the first one, where it's like you like, you know, exploration, but you know, just trying things, thinking about something, go like, oh, I wonder what happened if I do this, and then like the game logic supporting that in its sandbox to allow you to utilize that. And sometimes it's useless, which is funny, but sometimes it's like actually useful or extremely specific use case useful. But you have that in your bank, right? You have that in your mind of like, well, here's another combination of things that I can do, and those combinations are humongous, and nearly always lead to absolutely tremendous results.
Mm-hmm.
Because like and it's really funny because this game is like technically and mechanically a lot more complex than the first one, as like a the building mechanic overall is like hugely complex in its potential, while also allowing you can do it very simply if you'd like, but it is a very complex thing.
It reminds me a lot of Trail Makers.
Yeah, like it's all of those.
Yeah, like it's not unique to Trail Makers, but that's the line I frequently draw it to.
Yeah, where you will be able to create, terrible contraptions to wreak havoc on the world and anyone in it. Whereas Breath of the Wild, its relationships to its mechanics and it's the game's relationship to its sequel are almost linked in that way, where the mechanics in Breath of the Wild are like, here are fundamental pillars which you can manipulate, which is like moving around specific types of objects, creating ice out of water, bombs, just creating an explosion, and being able to stop time, and manipulate the momentum through that. Whereas and that fits in the game, right? Because like the game is built around those fundamentals where you can then utilize one or more of those fundamental like abilities on every aspect of the game. One of them will interact with basically everything. And its story is very simple, like the defeat Ganon, as the overall quest you have for the entire game, like it is very like simple, not in a reductive way, in a like a clear way, right? It is you are here, this is your goal. Every single thing that you do in this game is going to work directly to this one singular goal of defeat Ganon, which you get at almost jump. Whereas in this one is like its mechanics are a lot more complex with the building. Recall is even more complex, like kind of than the time thing, in terms of its potential to be something that is not at all related to yourself. The ability to send up rocks back up to the sky, the ability to I'm not sure if you've seen these, but being able to move a platform over to where you want it to go and then move it back, and then jumping on that platform and recalling it, and it'll just take you right to where you want to go. Right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Because you can't use it with Ultra Hand when you're standing on it.
Yep. But you can record where you want things to go.
Yeah.
It's not just about return to sender. It's about being the sender sometimes.
Well, you saying that makes me think of a couple of things, and you feel this with Ultra Hand as well when you're rotating things and you have the rotation gizmo turn up.
Yeah,
and it was fun seeing that in the demo that AG Numa did a month or two ago, and it was like, oh, they have literal gizmos in there, so you can see like axes.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're giving you like engine level, like development level, like tools. You know what I mean? Like being able to record paths for moving platforms, like that's something you do when you're creating a game. Being able to build vehicles for your character to then use once you're finished constructing it is something you do when you're building a game.
Like and even if it's even if it's just for reference in games, it's fundamentally the same sort of thing that you're doing. The only ability that kind of feels weird and a bit out of place is, like, not even out of place, but it's just kind of there, is the ascend ability to go through objects that are above you. It was weird in the demo, and it's still weird because it's the only one I don't actively think about as a potential to what I'm doing at any given moment.
Totally. There's a number of times where I'm like, oh, this is the ascend area, but more likely what happens for me is
I need to try and build a ladder.
You know those Boko towers where the drawbridge is like stuck up there with string?
Yeah.
And you have to shoot it down? You don't have to shoot it down. Just fucking get in there. You have a free ability. Just use it in there. Like, multiple times I've been like, oh, this could have been so much easier if I just shortcut my way through and jumped up through it.
So I was streaming the game the other day. This might have been yesterday, I don't quite remember. and I went to one of the towers that fill out your map. And this one is covered in spikes, so I couldn't get to it. Classic this type of game thing. Like, hey, there's a bunch of spikes.
I mean, they did that in the last one.
Yeah. The difference is, the spikes are covering the entrance as opposed to just stopping you from getting to the entrance, which means you need to.
Oh, so do you have to go in through the top?
Yes, I believe you do. And so I'm like, oh well, I got to climb. But in this area, it's also perpetually raining. Weather forecast is rain no matter what. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So this is different. This is like, okay, how do I make myself up? And they give you.
Is there a clear path up the tower to climb?
Nope. So what they do have at the bottom of the tower is like 3 or 4 lots of the building material, and in one very small area. So like they are like, hey, like build a thing. And I spent for ages trying to make a repeatable, self-climbable ladder.
Like a modular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely forgetting this entire time that I'd be able to just saw through the bottom of one and come out the roof. Because I just forgot.
Because of Ascend, yeah.
Because of Ascend, I completely forgot about that ability. So I'm like doing like angles and like, I can't have the
just enough so you can climb it.
Yeah, but not too much
and...
not too much that I got to use my hands because I'll slip, and like it was a fucking nightmare. And I forgot about that for so long that when I had to reuse that ability about an hour later, I was like, I wasted.
What am I meant to do here?
Well, I thought back to the time, like I wasted 40 minutes forgetting about that one ability.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. But yeah, it is really impressive the level of trust the game has with the player to understand and engage all of these mechanics regularly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, I mean, they have those moments where it's like, hey, like time to build a glider. Like you want to glide to get over this gap. We're giving you the components. Like, throw one together.
Yeah.
But they're also just like in spots for you to go there and fuck around with it when you want.
Yeah.
And it's not required, but like if you're a big fan of building, like we'll give you the fucking building tools. We'll give you
like frequently enough that you won't be without like a building station for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Really.
And especially when you get in the underground as well, that is a huge area for building.
I haven't seen any building deposits there yet. That's interesting.
Yeah. That underground is like, wow, they put a third game in this one.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. They gave us a new map, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like,
and then like all of the light bloom trees are connected to each of the shrines, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah. So
that
like,
means there's dozens of these. Dozens, maybe more than 100.
I remember, so like very early on in the game, one of the early quests is like, hey, go to these 4, or at least actually maybe it's not early, but like I did it early. Go to these 4 areas around the Great Plateau, and there are these 4 chasms that basically make up the underground version of the Great Plateau, and hop down there and do some stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I started doing that, and I went down one, and I was like, okay, and I'm like, and I found my first light bloom seed or whatever it is, and I lit up this area, and I was like, okay, like I'm expecting like a chunk to light up, and it was like a very small amount on this map.
Yeah, it's fairly small, isn't it? Yeah.
And my mind went to Elden Ring. When you go down the well, you go down those giant elevators for the first time, and a second layer of the map shows up, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I was like, think about Elden Ring. I was like, oh, like I remember like the downstairs area, like it was big, but it wasn't nearly as big as the open world map. This is probably like that. This is probably like, a section. It's the entirety of Hyrule.
It's the whole map, man.
Again,
it's the whole map, and
different.
It's far less complex.
It is a lot less complex, and there's no weather conditions down there, and there's
no civilizations either. Like
there's a lot less going on as
it's just
a game.
It's one big monster cave.
Yes.
That's fine.
What it reminds me of, Kerry, is low rule.
Yes. I had that thought.
Yeah.
I went into the depths and I thought to myself, this must have been the answer that the developers asked themselves. They must have said, how can we have a a world shifting, a world layer shift like we've had in Link to the Past, like we've had in Ocarina of Time or Skyward Sword, Wind Waker to a much smaller extent.
Sure.
Where there is Lorule, where there is the past and the present. They somehow they not somehow they show that this is their answer. They gave us an underworld, and it's not like an alternate dimension. It's like there's a whole other world. There is an underworld under Hyrule that is there at all times. That is as big as the kingdom. It is its own kingdom, and you can go there at any time. It exists concurrently, and it's like it's the perfect answer for that inside of Breath of the Wild.
And it's also got its own rules, and it's got its own vibe and its own reason to be there, right? Like
like its own like Korok seeds.
And when I went down there, I was like, oh, like I don't like this place nearly as much as Hyrule, but like I'll do some stuff and I'll just probably hop back out. And then I started to like really go down there. I'm like, oh, this is like this. So I think that this is the place for the building of the machines. This is the sandbox for you to make just the most whack contraptions.
Right. Well, I suppose the area is not covered in rubble in the same way that Hyrule is.
Yeah, and on top of that, like you also like it. What it is covered though, it's covered in that gloom, that material that is on the ground. That if you stand on it for too long, it will start to reduce your maximum HP.
And it's fast enough that as someone with only 4 hearts, like I was like, I actually don't think I want to do this right now. Like I take like 1 arrow hit and 1 spear poke, and like it takes a second for Link to keel over dead if you stand on the wrong thing.
But you can build contraptions to drive over it. Well easy, and that's good fun. That is really fun. And when the entirety of the marketing for this game has been all about Link in the sky, this was a surprise.
Yeah,
this sure was a giant fucking shock to know.
And it's a great like separate loop. Like you get the joy of harvesting all that zonaite from all of the creatures and all of their camps. Like there is so much of that together for you to then spend to create more battery power and stuff like that. I haven't found a way to convert that yet, but it reminds me of gathering like raritanium in the early Ratchet games. You know, it's just actually so rewarding just to gather.
So what it also does when you get the final ability, which spoilers for the final ability, it's not that exciting as the others or game changing, but which
is why it's not on the first area.
Yeah, it's an auto build ability. So you get schematics, and it'll also track the last 30 changes you have made to to a structure. So if you want to duplicate a structure, you can just do that, provided that the parts are nearby.
Yeah.
But if the parts are not nearby, you can transform your zonite into those parts and spend it on the fly to conjure up these parts.
Oh, right.
That is the actual kind of understated biggest thing about this ability, is that you can be trapped somewhere and be like, fuck, like I sure stepped in it. And then be like, okay, so what am I gonna do? Like, and like,
you can do the Fortnite thing of just someone hits you with an arrow and you turn
into a fort.
Construct a fort.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you can just be like, oh, like I don't have like anything on me, like, and I'm kind of fucked, or like I'm in the middle of a boss fight or something. Like, what the hell am I gonna do? And like,
maybe you'll get to a boss that like runs at the speed of like a fucking like jet engine. And you have to. It's like, oh, this is something that I need help with.
You have to Green Lantern like create a jet engine in front of you and just like hop in it and fucking start flying. I need to tell you this is I'm not going to say who the boss fight is because I don't want to spoil that for you, but that like earlier in that quest line where you get that ability, you are fighting a character who was in a flying machine, and I cannot begin to tell you how many times I was like, Godspeed, Spider-Man, as they were flying, because it it was jet engines that were making them fly, and the shape of
Yep.
it was kind of like the glider, and they're like driving.
Sleep.
It's so funny. It's just being a fucking little green goblin is hilarious in this game.
So there was something you said there, where you said the amount of trust they've given the player,
Yeah.
to engage with the mechanics and the depth of the mechanics, and there are many areas like that where I feel I can see the developers looking at Breath of the Wild and looking at how the players engage with Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
and seeing how unintended things happened that maybe they liked or didn't like, that they catered more towards or further away from. Like the ability to create contraptions that fly and roll across the land and like vehicles seems like a direct consequence of the amount of people who made minecart traveling machines with magnesis in the first game.
Yeah.
And then used that as a genuine mode of travel across their playthroughs. Like millions of people did that.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating seeing those equivalences. I haven't fully decided yet if I love that. Like there was something that our friend said on Discord, which was like, he said, I don't know if I love this yet. He said, what if I don't want to glue things together in my Zelda game? You know, that's what this game is. Like so much of this game is using the Ultra Hand ability. It's not everything, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And the Ultra Hand ability is pick things up, move them around, and glue them together. That's what it is.
Yep.
So it has fundamentally shifted what this game is like in a lot of ways. Like it feels like every possible interaction with the game is that nth degree more complex. The shrine solutions and puzzles can be just so open-ended now because they become construction puzzles. They become like building mechanic puzzles. And it means that I spent half an hour on a shrine yesterday.
Yeah.
Slowly figuring out the mechanic it was showing me. I don't know if you saw that one. It's the one with those spikes that fuse into the ground, and then when you leave them there, they like set like concrete.
Yeah.
And you have to like use it to create a
like the bat.
To swat a ball and hit a target.
Yeah.
And then I spent ages trying to get the optional objective as well. Man, I spent so long in there just trying to make it work, just sort of like kind of bashing my head against it. And once I came out of there, I had a really thorough understanding of how that system worked. But I'm sitting there going like, I don't remember spending this long on a shrine in Breath of the Wild, because those were just like dungeon puzzles, you know, like so few of them were actually that open that it required you to really think and work it out and make it happen for yourself.
Yeah, like I remember there were a couple kind of obtuse ones in Breath of the Wild, but for the most part it was like, okay, like what's the thing?
Yeah.
And
especially the ones that were like carry the blue flame and it's just like an obstacle course.
Yeah. And like they still have they've got have you done the proving grounds, any of the shrines? Okay, so there's a type of shrine which is when you get in there it's like, hey, like proving grounds. And it does the take away all your armor and weapons thing and give you and gives you a couple, and it's just like kill all the constructs.
That's great.
It's really cool. It's really dope, and it's always
it's like Inside Island and Master Mode.
Exactly. Yeah. But smaller,
not a one-off or extra content.
bit more bite-sized, and allows you to play with some more things each time you do it, because when you go through those areas in Breath of the Wild, you're either going to really struggle or you're going to like be well overpowered. That at that point doesn't fucking matter.
Totally.
For getting there at that middle ground where it's like a good challenge is a complete fluke because of how open that game is. Whereas now it's more about like, well, let's see what you know at this point, and there's enough of them that you'll do a bunch of them at quite a few times in your playthrough that you will be re-challenged with a better understanding of the mechanics as you're going, which I think is really smart. Again, trusting the player to really understand what's going on and see it through, I think is a really important thing, which I think the first game does in spades a lot, but more in a structure game, in a overall story kind of way, right?
Yeah, and in a way where they didn't actually know how the majority of players would interact with their game at the end of the day.
Kind of. I think what I think is interesting about both of these games is that like it kind of doesn't matter in a way. Like not that like it doesn't matter at all what like how the player does, and I'm sure they have a really really strong understanding of the general ideas of things that they're going for. But when you see interviews with people who worked on the game, I'm not sure any of their names because I'm just not super familiar with them. But like the idea that there's no wrong way to solve a shrine, is really sick, and I think also comes out of things like previous games that are a bit more open than Zelda ever has been in the past, stuff like Minecraft, for example, where it's like, you know, you can play these maps and there's a bunch of different ways you can sort of do the same thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Minecraft came out when Skyward Sword did, and Skyward Sword is sort of the
extremely
most, like,
linear.
So linear, like the most like kid-friendly, like Fives talking to you the whole time.
Yeah.
Like the puzzle solutions, you can't really break them open too much. They don't want you to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone should go watch Game Maker's Toolkit's Boss Keys series on all of the Zelda games, and how throughout time they became more and more linear and less of a puzzle box design and more of a like just dungeon puzzle design.
Yeah. Speaking of
Game Maker's Toolkit.
No, speaking of dungeons. I'm not going to go into any specifics, but there was one very, very, very minor thing that I didn't realize was going to punch me in the gut as hard as it did, of like, oh, I forgot about this.
Okay.
Which was, I'm in Goron City. I did a bunch of things.
Classic Zelda.
I then got to the dungeon, which is like I don't remember the name of it, but I think it just said the Fire Temple.
Wow.
And
awesome. That is huge if it says that.
That's
a real callback.
And that's not the part that hit me though. What hit me was seeing the character's 1F next to it.
Oh.
And I was like,
yeah.
Oh, dungeons and floors. And I was like I'm sitting there going like, wow, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a fucking, and immediately
probably for you, since you played like Ocarina or like Link Between Worlds?
Ocarina.
Or maybe Link's Awakening.
I barely did much at Link's Awakening. Like, it's the sense that I wouldn't even include it. Like, yeah, either last time I played Ocarina or last time I played Link Between Worlds. Probably Link Between Worlds.
Still, that game came out like 9 years ago.
Yeah, like that's a 3DS game. Just like an old friend has shown up at my birthday party, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in years. I've missed you.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much I missed you until I missed you, sort of thing. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
And you see them and you're like, oh.
Yeah. And like, just like, and then a few steps in, I'm like, fucking, like, we are so back.
Yeah. Because they haven't said anything about it. In fact,
they did just before release. Just before release, they did that talk briefly about dungeons, but that was that was just days before.
The one thing I remember hearing was on Kind of Funny, they had Timur Hussein on from GameSpot, and he spoke a bit about his time with it.
Yeah.
And he spoke about how he was playing, and he got to the entrance of what looked like a dungeon, and the Nintendo reps were like, "We're not letting press in here."
Yeah.
And Timur was like, "They let me like look down the corridor, but I couldn't see anything past that."
Yeah.
And he was like, we still don't know yet, but man, I hope it is what I want it to be. Yeah. And so I've just had that in my head of like, they have to know. So much of this game has been an answer to what happened with the first game. So much of this game has been an answer to the criticisms of the first game, as well as an embracing of what went so well in the first game. And the chief criticism is the dungeon design, or the lack thereof, almost the lack of traditional Zelda sort of design language and philosophy.
Yeah,
so
and it was the twist in Breath of the Wild is that there are the divine beasts, and they are like they are a twist that of a dungeon, but they are not a dungeon. It's like a
Yeah.
it's a
They're a puzzle box.
it's a riff.
Yeah. And it's funny because in one of the Discords we were in recently, someone was saying, wish me luck, I'm about to do it for the first time. And they posted a screenshot, was Water Temple
In Ocarina.
in Ocarina of Time. And
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, good clarification.
Yes,
and
yes.
and I was like, oh, I'd be very interested to hear how you think about it, playing it for the first time in the modern day, not knowing the solutions to all the puzzles.
Yeah.
And this person finished in like an hour and a half, and they're like, fucking hell, that
Yeah.
sucked. And I was like, oh, but at least you finished it. My brother and I were stuck there for 3 months.
Yeah.
When we were much younger. But
shout outs to Jamie Galea for starting up Ocarina
Oh,
of
is that
Time.
Jamie?
Yeah, shout out to Jamie for starting Ocarina of Time like a week and a half before Tears of the Kingdom.
it's definitely bold.
Fuck, that's funny.
But the thing it made me think of was how the issue with the water temple is that to control the space, to control the water level in that place, you have to go to specific rooms and specific places in those rooms and play a certain song, which means it can take you 5 minutes just to get to the top of the temple, to lower the water, to go back down to the first floor, to then go through without the, like, it's such a headache to do anything in that temple.
Yeah.
And the divine beasts allow you to have a more water temple like temple where it is more of a puzzle, just moving in the space,
Mm-hmm.
and then make it a breeze by having all those controls just given to you on the map. Like, that is an elegant design solution to a design problem. But yeah, it was a shame that it was at the expense of so much of what feels like a Zelda dungeon.
Yeah, and like I don't know how dungeons fit in that game anyway, because it is like, it really was like a gigantic deconstruction of like, what does this mean, right? You know, like the industry changing deconstruction. Turns out it was a deconstruction of role playing games as opposed to just the Legend of Zelda, which is hilarious. Totally. But like, yeah, they stripped everything back. Like, what do we need in this game and what do we not need? And that's not to say that they were wrong to take out dungeons, because I still think that game clearly still works without it, even if people missed it. But yeah, to then look at that and go like if we made another one, we think we do want dungeons to be in it again. And then I cannot tell you, getting through this, they've done a deconstruction of what it actually means to do a dungeon. And I'm like, oh, like these.
Yes, Jeremy, that's so exciting.
Like I haven't even finished the first one, but like it's strong.
The idea for me has just been, it pops up just quietly in the background. It's like, oh, there's probably dungeons in this. And that is like so fucking exciting. I mean, especially even more so hearing you say it now.
Yeah.
Like, it's exciting because everything they've tried that I have seen so far, I don't really have any complaints right now. There's some, like, again, the way the Ultra Hand is so dominant in how you approach things, I don't know if I love that. But at the end of the day, like, I lost 7 hours yesterday. Yesterday we were playing and we ordered dinner because it got to the point where it was like, I want to keep playing tonight. I didn't get to play anything yesterday. I'm just going to keep playing. I'm not cooking tonight.
Sure.
So we ordered food.
Yeah.
And I knew it was coming from a while away, from somewhere we haven't ordered yet. And I was like, oh, this would probably actually be like the full 40 minutes, like it usually says it is and doesn't usually get to.
Yeah.
I'm playing, and Sam gets up and opens the door, and I'm playing, and Sam puts a serviette on my knee, and I'm like, wait, what? And Sam's like, food's here. And I'm like, what do you mean food's here? I didn't notice anyone by the door. I don't know how Sam noticed. Food had just arrived. Yeah. Like, I noticed Sam get up and come back, but I just thought like, they must be turning the light on or something. Like,
you're like a cat. You're like, food. Yeah, like last night, same thing. I was like, I sat down, I got home at I don't know, like I got home at like 4 o'clock. And like that was when I was like, okay, like I've now got time to play. And so like I sat on the couch for a while, and I got up and I like vacuumed the house and sat back down and kept playing. Had dinner, kept playing. And then I like just like glanced at my phone. I'm like, 2 a.m.
Yeah.
What? And like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Like it that time has vanished from timelines.
It's fascinating because when you have that feeling of wanting to keep playing, like you're so sucked in.
Yeah.
I think the only other single player game that can match this with Zelda is maybe Persona because of how big it is. But when you get this sucked into a single player game normally, it normally means by the time you've spent like a whole afternoon with it, it's like a big open world like Horizon, that's like a fifth of the game is done. Uncharted, more than half of the game is done. Like you have seen so many things to the point where it's like binging a TV show and you can hardly remember any of it. But a game like this, it's not full of all those intense moments. They keep you hooked second to second, like moment to moment with the mechanics and with just how it feels to go places and to discover things and to go, oh, what's over there? That those 8 hours feel effortless, but they don't feel like they were so intense as, oh, I found my long lost brother and then we did a heist and then we went to Scotland and then we got shot at on the way out and we almost didn't make, like you have like 4 different like set piece moments in 8 hours and it's all a blur.
Yeah, you like it's you don't solve this game. Well, you do eventually, but it like the thing is the solution, like the problem in the game is to solve is not combat encounters. Like I've seen people like online talk about how like, one of the biggest issues in Breath of the Wild and this game is that like eventually you become so strong that combat encounters are like nothing, and you've got abilities and food and armor and weapons to avoid every dangerous chance.
Yeah, you get hit, you drink a stew, you get hit.
Yeah, like it's a thunderstorm, you put your electric weapons away, you get burned, you take some fire resistance, all that stuff, right? Which is that's not wrong, but I think that's not the issue in the game. That's not the problem to solve in the game. The problem to solve for me has always been like the traversal, and like that does get like semi-solved with the amount of teleportation that you get by the time you start to like run out of shrines, but you still have to like make your way to each of those locations, and every time you do that you will encounter hurdles and things that you like, problems that require solutions. And in this game, sometimes they are gigantic fuck off cars, or sometimes they are creating a glider to the effect of one of the greatest comic book villains in any movie, right? And you have to approach each of those solutions. You have to approach each of those problems with similar but still unique solutions basically every time, because like a variable has changed, which means something else has to too. And
more so than ever, I feel like there's those Bokoblin forts now. They're not those like tree houses. They're like the things with like walls and like siege spears. They had a couple of those maybe, but they were very specific areas in the first one. And solving those feel like combat puzzles. Those feel like a unique set of tools for you to play with to solve the combat encounter.
Have you seen the boss forts?
Boss forts?
No, you haven't. All right, you'll find out. It's another type of solving it. It's like, oh, okay, like these are all familiar. These are all familiar problems. But in this sequence, it is a new sequence, right? Like, you're never surprised in a deck of cards, right? But every time you shuffle it, it's fucking different. Right? Like, you're like, oh, what's this card? But every time you shuffle the deck of cards, it is always different.
When you're right, you're right.
When you're right, right. Should we throw it to a break for a bit?
Yeah, it's pretty much break time. Before I forget, I just want to tell a story of a fort that I was dealing with.
Go for it.
There's something cool about when they roll a what?
Sorry, I'm still laughing at
a deck of cards.
Yeah, you're not surprised by a deck of cards, but every time you do it, it's different.
So something that's cool about the forts is they almost always roll a spiky ball at you that's like twice the size of you.
Yeah.
And in the first trailer for the game, you use it, you see them rewind it back up the hill and hit the enemies. So like I do that like every time.
Oh yeah.
But then I also afterwards, once it's back up in the fort and it's still there, I then stick it on the end of a sword, and then it absolutely wrecks everybody.
Yep.
And so like doing stuff like that is really fun. But something I did, I was in one end of the camp and I hadn't alerted the other side with like the really big boss bokoblin and all the other ones sitting by the fire. And so I was like, what can I do here? How can I make this the best that it can? I was like, there's a fuck ton of explosive barrels here. How am I gonna get them all over there? I'll glue them all together. So I start gluing them all together. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm gonna walk them off this ledge and do the thing. I'm like, wait, put them down on the ground. As soon as I walk off the ledge, they'll drop and I'll kill myself. So I put them down on the ground. I'm very careful about it. I drop down, I pick them back up again. I lift them up. I trot over there. They finally figure out that I'm there pretty quickly. They move over, and one of them just hits me, and I drop it way earlier than I meant to, and it just annihilates me and everything else nearby. I'm mostly fine. Like, there seems to be some sort of explosion protection for ones that you instigate.
Right.
So I don't immediately die, but it eviscerates everything nearby. Like all of the small guys, red and blue bokoblins alike, are just they're gone. I didn't even see them go. They're gone.
You don't know where their resources are even.
Yeah, but it was like I tried so carefully, and then all that happened in the end was I got hit and dropped it. It was like stumbling over and spilling my food everywhere. Except it did the thing that I actually wanted it to do in the end anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of happy accidents in that game.
So many.
All right. We're going to send it to a break, and then when we come back, we're talking more Zelda, everyone. So if you like that, get ready for more of it. Welcome back to the MiniMapCast. We've been talking about Zelda during the break. Mostly looking at amiibos.
Yeah, we did show and tell.
And the pre-order poster I got, and the luggage tag you get from EB.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to look at the coin. Alex mentioned the coin from JB that I didn't know of. So we'll look at that after the show.
It's fine.
But I want to see it.
All right.
So we've got a few prompts here. There was something I was going to ask though. There was one. No, I think I've lost it. That's all right. So we've got a few prompts here as just sort of like discussion topics. We've done a bunch of rambling. I'm sure we could do more, but we'll focus it a little in this second half here. So our first prompt was, how did you find Tutorial Island, or the Great Sky Island, I think it's called?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think
Great Plateau 2.0.
Yeah. It's because because the new mechanics are so complex. I think it is quite an effective tutorial.
Yes.
And like
especially for like how long they leave, because it is more linear, for how long they leave you with each one to get to the next one.
Yeah.
Is a good amount of time to use it on the way.
And it's like, to be fair, it's not the only tutorial, because you get more tutorials via the shrines, because they are your kind of de facto tutorial at the same time in a lot of ways. Yeah. I think that on repeat playthroughs, I think it will become a bit more tedious, which I think is, not something that they necessarily should be considering, but just like, I would maybe appreciate like a way to skip it. If I had to play the game again.
Because Breath of the Wild definitely felt like, here's how you explore the world as well, and find shrines in the world and activate towers, and it felt like the whole area was like just walking around was part of the tutorial, where it feels like for this one that is less of their focus.
This one was a lot more like, while it's still free-ish in terms of you to explore, like you're going around a pretty bespoke path that will walk you through all of these things, and if you don't get this right, then you really won't progress. And right being a more vague term than most other games, because they allow you to do it with the mechanic in your own way, but you still have to engage with the mechanic, which is very smart. Like there were many times when because I was streaming this part of the game, I was like, oh, like this little puzzle, this part of the tutorial, whatever, so smart. Like a lot of them are really well considered. There's a lot of thought put behind making you think of the mechanics across different ways and changing different things to with the mechanics, changing it up so that you are considering using these mechanics across a variety of situations.
Even the way they steer you to certain shrines from the start, like
Yeah.
I didn't go the wrong way first. Like I went and found the first shrine, and that led me neatly towards the second. And then by then I figured out I was on a spiral, and I kept going, and like it worked quite organically.
I actually did go the wrong way, but I very quickly realized that like, oh, I need to be going this other way. Which yeah, it's fine. I think that the tutorial island is quite good. It's not short, and that's, I don't know how you make it shorter. And I maybe would have liked it shorter, but that's also me itching to get into the open world, and they really
and with you with a bit more recent familiarity with Breath of the Wild too.
I suppose, yeah. Like I did just want to get in and start exploring, and they really pumped the brakes on that because you like there's a gate on that world which you have to do. Like if you have to do all the first shrines before you can open it, and it's explicit. But yeah, it's overall like it's a really cool place. It's also actually the only exploring I've done in the Sky World, which is interesting. I haven't been
almost
pulled.
made it to another island once out of a tower, and I messed it up. I pulled my glider out too late.
I haven't done any of the actual activities in the Sky World. I think because it kind of satiated me a little bit at the beginning, because you're there for you're forced to be there very quickly, and for quite a while. So I think that's interesting that they don't immediately send you back up there or immediately give you a reason to go up there. But yeah,
and there's so much up there too. It's fascinating. It's a good point. Like the next time I go in, I might jump in that tower and try get to that place I saw again. I enjoyed it, and as someone who hasn't played Breath of the Wild except for like an hour or two recently, I quite liked it, and it helped me re-break that mindset of did I do that right, which is impressive with how more linear it was compared to the first Great Plateau. Like the solutions where you have to kind of stick a bunch of trees together so you can make it up a icy ledge because it's too slippery to climb, and like I just stuck like 5 logs end on end and walked up it, and I got to the top and I was like, oh, did I just wreck the design of that? Did they want me to find it? Did I miss the point? I was like, no, there is that
doesn't matter.
That's not how this works. You solved it. There was a problem and you figured the solution.
The solution is to solve it.
The solution is get up there, and you got up there. You did. Well done. And like, there's a couple of ways. I went back to that area last night to do a couple of things like that. Broken minecart track puzzle that I was messaging you about with the single broken track.
Yeah.
So I went back there with the paraglider, got the rewards, and then tried to solve the puzzle. But there was another area later in the ice area where I was like, oh, I just want to get up there, and I had ascend by that point rather than not having it yet.
Right.
And there's just a cheeky little section where a little bit of snow overhanged above the ground.
Yeah.
And it was tiny, and I found this tiny little lip, and I went up there. So that felt good. That felt good. But
did you fight the boss in the tutorial island?
The big guy made of blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
really
that.
funny, strange boss.
So great. Such a cool way to consider like remember, use these mechanics in combat, and here's a boss where you pick apart the piece by piece and then whack them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you will have someone fighting against you to use the mechanic. Make sure you persevere. It's really cool. Really great little fucking boss.
The thing I was unclear about was I thought I could maybe throw the blocks over the edge and remove them.
Right.
From the fight. I think they regenerated though. I only did that a couple of times. I didn't really feel like I made a difference. But yeah, that was a really fun fight. I didn't really feel any danger.
No, it was a tutorial boss without it being there was no peril.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to more of that in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking about the Sky Islands and how about like neither you or I has been back there, and you've put more than 20 hours in. I put in like 12, like without a thought, and we haven't been in that top area yet. Like, it's wild. It's immense. You would have loved, Jeremy, the way you would have laughed at me playing this game. I couldn't. I was telling Sam, I was like, I wanted to get to the first gloom hole and go into the depths, which is just, I'd done the shrine right next to it, so I could travel there whenever I wanted. And I was coming from the first lookout tower, so I could have just gone south and found it. But I was like, oh, there were a couple of shrines nearby. I'll go find those on the way, and then I can trade it for health. Found that shrine, found a fort, found another fort where the boss health bar was just a combined health bar of all of the enemies inside, which was cool. And then a bunch of villagers rocked up to like help.
That's
was
cool.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
It was like a moment. It was sick. There was all kinds of things. I got shot out of the air by a sniper bokoblin who I didn't think would actually hit me, but somehow they nailed me. And I just pulled off this sick shot on one of those like gliding pterodactyl things. Mid-air, slow down time, headshot, like arced it perfectly, and then I missed the shot on the bokoblin and they fucking sniped me out of the sky. Completely ruined the vibe. And I just kept drifting further and further away from this hole that I was trying to get to. And at some point I was like, okay, I've got to go now. I just have to do it. And I just fast traveled. I was like, there's nothing like Koroks, like there was a Korok that, the little buddies with the backpacks that like,
I love them so fucking much. They're so funny.
They're so funny, but also you can fuck these guys up so much. And they don't complain. And they just let you mess with them so much. I used one as like an axle between two wheels. Like they were the bit that joined, and then I stood on top and hit go. And we rode there together.
I've seen people make sets to crucify them.
Oh my God.
Like make a giant cross and like, a field of graves, and just like there's a Korok with his backpack stuck to the middle of the gigantic cross.
Like struggling and sweating.
Oh. The first thing I did when I picked him up, I was like, oh, I can glue this to shit. I'm gonna fuck around with him a little bit. Was the first time when you meet, you have to like get him across like a gap when you're in the Sky Islands. And so I stuck him to the front of my minecart like a masthead, and just like then went, and he's just like kind of like freaking out because he's like above like a giant hole in the world. Just to give him. It's so fucking funny.
But also like he'll hit the stopper at the end. Like he hits the thing that like stops the minecart.
It reminded me of every time I picked up a rock and found a Korok below it, I would just let go of the rock and it would go on their head and they're like, ow.
Yeah. So we have another prompt here. What changes do/don't we like? I don't know how I feel about the instant 100% removal of all Sheikah relics from the world.
Sheikah relics?
Just because, like the towers and the old shrines, like they're just
gone. Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I just kind of wish that they were in ruins, or like they were derelict, or they sunk back into the ground and you could just see like the tops of them. Like just a little bit more.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because I think I don't want them to still be up, because I think it would ruin the look of the world.
Oh, and everything would be way too crowded.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there's 240 shrines, but only like 120 of them. I think there's 120 new ones, but like only half of them work. That would suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Or at least have some of them like go up as a part of the Sky Island thing, and then like something like that. Yeah.
Or some of them are down below in the sink.
Totally. That is really strange. I think I'm not recognizing the world as much as I expected to, and I don't know if that's a negative.
Either, Jeremy.
I don't know if that's I don't think it's a negative, but I don't like. I think there was a level of expectation of like this is the world you kind of know.
Yeah.
And I don't really know it.
And like, I guess that's good gameplay wise.
Yeah, like it's fine.
Because the thing where you recognize it all the time is kind of a problem, because then like maybe you're bored.
Yeah, or like, I will eventually recognize this world when I know it.
Yeah. And it's lower and upper level.
Yeah. I think the lower level is a bit basic in its terrain and its general like it's art, like it's just dark. There's
yeah, that's why I called it like one big single cave. Like it kind of just feels like it.
Yeah. And it's not super interesting, and the idea behind it being like that everything in there is kind of ancient. It doesn't really feel lived. It just kind of feels like a bunch of terrain that has been decided for you to traverse, and then some structures around. I don't have natural roads in there, right? I don't have this was where they were doing X, Y, or Z. It's kind of just like, this is another desert for you to explore.
Yeah, and honestly, as just having like more room to do Zelda things in, I'm happy with it. Like just kind of seeing it as being like, here's your spelunking cavern, go spelunk.
Sure, yeah,
that's fine for me.
Yeah, I think,
but I understand the
like I want just a little bit more character in some of its reasoning, like why this is here, why this is over there.
Yeah.
Some of the changes that I do really like is, a lot of the quality of life stuff is really good. Like the ability to, when you open up a chest, this is the one everyone's saying, you open up a chest, your inventory is full. It gives you the immediate, like, do you want to swap something out in your inventory? So useful, because managing the inventory in Breath of the Wild was never great.
Yeah, or even like in those quick inventory bars, being able to sort them in there while you're in those menus, and being able to drop things in there even just when you're out in the world.
And yet some weirdly inconsistent sorting options across various ways to look at the same inventory, I have found.
Yeah.
With your melee weapon, the sorting is a sort button, but it is not a swap between various sorting options.
Yeah.
Whereas when you look at your weapons in the pause menu, you can sort it by power, or you can sort it by weapon type, I think.
Right.
But then when I'm just doing the quick swap, there's like, that doesn't exist.
Yeah. But so it does it by power, but also by type.
It doesn't do it by power when you're doing it.
No, it does, but it segments it by like,
right,
by like two-handed and by spear.
Yeah.
And that's why you'll find some of your stronger weapons towards the back, because it does like one-handed, two-handed, spear.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the sorting options for the materials are pretty consistent across both things, where it's like you can sort it by like Zono weapons, you can sort it by
there's one that's just type.
Yeah, type, and there's one which is like fuse power, which is useful.
And frequently used as well.
Yeah, frequently used, great addition. Really fucking useful addition. But yeah, like
I love
weird menu stuff in a Zelda game. Shocking.
Yeah. Overall positive.
Yeah, like a better than what it was. Still not perfect, but definitely better than what it was.
Yeah. I really, really love the way you can access your materials in game now.
Yeah.
Not just in the way they integrate it with the fuse mechanic, but even just that you can pull things out from that menu and drop them when you want. Like, I want to drop an apple for the dog at the stable. I could just do that from the front menu now, from the quick menu.
Yeah.
Or the way you can throw things from that menu just whenever you want. Like you can use it for bomb flowers, which I'm so glad those are there.
Yeah.
Like you don't have the bomb rune anymore, but now they're a resource. It feels classic and right in so many ways. And bomb flowers are in plenty of previous games as well. It feels really good. But then throwing them, being able to equip them and then just toss them, that's great. Or I could then even do silly things with that, with like an egg. I could throw an egg at a bokoblin if I wanted to, like there's nothing stopping me.
Yeah, and similarly, when you're cooking, you can autofill recipes so that like you could look at your recipe book and you can, so when you go to hold an item to then put it in the cooking pot, there's an additional prompt for food, which is the recipes button, and it'll then give you a list of all the recipes that you know with that food.
Yep.
And you can fill it up or fill it up to the maximum of your ability, which is sometimes like a lot less if you don't have the right stuff. So that when you need to make a specific type of recipe that you've done before, you can then just pull that out and cook it.
Oh, I need to remember to do that. Because so often I'll be like, oh, I just want ones that, because I've only got 4 hearts. And so, this happened in Breath of the Wild too, where it's like, oh, I've got a truffle here and like some raw prime meat. And all of a sudden I've made something that gives me full heart recovery plus 9 extra hearts.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and like, this will be a waste if I use this right now.
It's like, I just want something that gives me more than 1 health. Like I just want like a 2 or 3 health restoration.
Genuinely, every single time I do that, I just sell it.
I should do that.
Like it's worth more in rupees at the moment than it is for me to hold on to it forever until I really need it.
I found out really late that like good cooked food sold highly in Breath of the Wild, and I had forgotten it for this game. I should do that.
It's worth so much more to you as money than it is to hold on to.
How do you feel about the weapon crafting?
It's really fun.
It is fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
like I didn't love it to start with, but I love that all of the bokoblins have changed slightly to the point they've all got weapons on their heads. They've all got like weapon heads on their heads.
Yeah, like
they all look doofier now.
When I realized how the weapons work in this game, I was like, oh, that's really weird that it's not about weapon power that I'm finding anymore, and then that's suddenly not really that useful thing to consider. But as I went, I'm like, but actually, I'm building myself up all the time by taking on stronger enemies, which is a lot more rewarding than I accidentally found the strongest sword in the game very early, and I can finally take on something that I probably shouldn't be taking on, and then it breaks and I'm fucked.
Yeah, exactly. You would always find those bokoblin horns and fangs and like the moblin one, like the bigger ones, and then the Lionel hooves and guts and all of that stuff, and it never really equated. It was just more stuff to make elixirs if you did that, which I never did.
I never did either.
So I just gathered hundreds of these giblets.
Yeah, for me it was stuff to sell when I needed money. It was like like these are sort of rare, so they go for a bit more, but I'm not actually like using them. Yeah.
Or you hold on to them in case you think you might need them later, and then you never use them ever.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be me.
No, not you at all.
But, wouldn't dream of it. But like now that they're all recontextualized, like you're right, each more difficult creature is its own reward because it means you will have something stronger at the end of it. And it also does an interesting thing where it does mean that you're not coming across all the same weapons again. So it addresses the I've seen all these weapons before thing. Like each weapon is now a weapon base, right? Like I found a Royal Claymore. It's fucked. It's like almost dust.
Yeah.
But like I can put like a moblin horn on it now and turn it into a hammer, or even just a boulder, and instantly it becomes like a durable, like quick spin weapon or something like that. And it really recontextualizes it. I have to ask, what's your favorite weapon, or maybe a couple that you've built? And why were they your favorite? Because I've got a couple, I've got a couple.
One of the ones that I really love it's a shield that I put a bounce pad on.
A bounce pad, nice.
Yeah.
I found that for the first time right as I closed my game last night.
Yeah, good fun, because when the enemies hit the shield, they fucking boing, which is really great.
Have you shield surfed on it yet?
I have not. I always forget about shield surfing because I barely did it.
Yep.
And I wasn't very good at it, but I will have to do that. What else? Like some of them are silly.
Yes, that's why I brought this up.
But like some of them are like, this looks ridiculous, which is like the one of the big rock monsters with the
talus.
Yeah. I killed one of those and I got its heart.
Yeah. And you can't pick it up. But it's a thing that you could do stuff with.
Yes, and so I put it at the end of a sword because I was like, well, whatever. Yeah. And it's just a sword with that object at the end of it. It doesn't turn into anything. No. And it kind of looks like a dick and balls. And so, but I was hitting, but like I'm holding like the head of the dick and whacking him, and it looked ridiculous. It looked stupid when it was on my back because I looked like facing the camera was Link's dick weapon.
This rock scrotum.
Yeah, right. And
but also like even engaging with it at face value, which is like, oh, it's the Talus heart. Like it's such a like synthetic heart shape.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the heart you draw on a piece of paper.
It's the Zelda heart, right? It's the heart container side like shaped heart.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's so silly. The other boss that did that was the that block one in the sky.
Yeah,
just blocks and drops the like cog thing.
Yeah.
My favorite weapons, unless you got one you want to
No, go for it.
One of the first ones I did when I got to Hyrule, and I still was getting to grips with it. And it made me, do you ever notice, Jeremy, that this is something that is true for me. If I'm watching something funny, but I'm by myself, I will laugh out loud less.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Like when there's people also laughing in a room with me, or there's like a social vibe, or if you're at a comedy show, like I will laugh out loud, maybe harder, maybe more, maybe both.
Yeah.
When I'm by myself, I laugh less.
Sure.
So something that really makes me laugh when I'm by myself is like, is golden.
Mm-hmm.
And when I stuck a farmer's hoe on the end of a sword yesterday, I laughed and I laughed and I didn't even use it. I just stuck it on and Link went, ha! And he showed it to the sky.
Yeah.
So proudly, his rusted sword with a farmer's hoe stuck to the end of it. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. It was so funny.
The ability just to have a weapon and then like, what if I had that weapon but twice as long is hilarious. It is very, very funny.
I found my first Lizalfos in the below. What do they call it? The depths.
What is that?
The lizard creatures.
Oh, right.
And they drop different horns, probably boomerang ones. I haven't used them yet. But they also drop their tails. And their tails are great for putting on the ends of your weapons because they act like whips. They extend with each attack. So then I got a long stick and just stuck a Lizalfos tail on the end of it. And it's not particularly sharp or damaging, but it's like a sturdy long stick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Lizalfos tail, so that's like a +6. And then I've got like an 11 damage spear that has such a significant range and looks so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it's a real valid weapon, and I plan to use them plenty more going ahead in the future.
Yep. I put a flamethrower on my shield.
That one's great. That's a great one.
And I was like, I wonder how this works because it wasn't using my battery, but it was using the durability of the shield. Or maybe it was using both. I don't quite remember.
It should use your battery.
Maybe it was using both, I think, because I was like, and so like I was using it to try and take out an enemy, and I'm like, fucking, like I'm just
flamethrower.
I'm burning you alive, and then suddenly like because just holding it up was using the durability because of the flamethrower, and
which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And then it broke, and I went, oh no! Like grave error.
You didn't think that far ahead?
No, not at all.
And I think one of my favorite things I stuck a flame emitter on was a sword, but only for when I threw it away when I didn't need it anymore. And it activated, and it was just this flame spiral falling off the Sky Island. It was just tumbling away. That was really cool.
Being able to put things at the end of things at the end of arrows as well is really, really great. Especially just like even things that are not attacking specific, but just like just to help you out in the situation that you're currently in. Really, really useful. Arrows are worth their weight in gold in this fucking game.
They really are. I mean, they're giving them to you more. Like, I had more arrows in this game than like a higher maximum arrow count than I think I ever had in Breath of the Wild.
Right.
Maybe they were capped. Maybe you could only carry like 99
of
a type.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure.
But then there were like 5 types.
Yeah.
It was like ice and fire and bomb and ancient.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I haven't found there is an arrow section, I think. Wait, no, I don't think there even is. There isn't an arrow swap out section, is there?
No, there isn't. You can see your arrow count when you upgrade your bow stash, for some reason it shows up there as another,
like that's where the bow inventory is.
Yeah, and it has the arrow quantity there. And I remember seeing that going like, I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere else. And because it's not there when you choose your arrows, choose your bow.
Yeah, right.
It was really strange that it was there. It almost felt like it was left there by mistake from the previous version of that game where you had multiple arrow.
But the arrows weren't kept in the bow slot in the first game, were they?
No, but they were there. Like you could see your quantities there, but they didn't take up slots, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe it is just a hangover from that.
Yeah, which is funny.
But yeah, using the fire fruits and bombs for bomb arrows, like that's where you get those things now, is from the resources. So then it becomes a thing of like, do you want to hang on to bombs to just throw them at likes or at bombable walls, or how many of these do you want to use to bombs being a resource in this game made me surprisingly happy.
Yeah,
it felt so right. In a really weird way. And like we didn't lose bombs in the last game, but like them being here in this context just feels so right.
Yeah, yep.
Jeremy, what's the dumbest shit you've built?
So I'll start off with a story that is not the dumbest thing I have built, but one of the dumbest things that has happened.
Maybe a general building stories section, but yeah.
So you might not be up to these yet. I'm not too sure. You can get rockets in this game.
I have seen them in a clip from someone. Someone strapped one to a Korok.
So they are good fun, these rockets. So I'm in the underground and I'm fighting. That's like a similar boss to the one that I was talking about before.
That you don't want to talk about too much.
Yes. In a flying machine. And I'm like, I'm like shooting arrows at it and stuff. And then eventually it gets harder and it's less and less room for to hit it. And at some point in the fight, the only way you can hit it is from above. And it's a flying boss. I'm like, okay, well, I've got some stuff near me. It's time to get building. And so I'm slowly building more and more stuff to get me up, like different little vehicles to, like some are just like platform with two fans pointing down to get me up, fire, all that stuff.
Is it too tall for you to just like light a fire and use the glider?
I didn't think about that. It might be too tall. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. But like at this point in the fight, he gets like the ability to shoot a missile at me, like not a rocket, but like just throwing a massive bomb at me,
explosive.
Yeah, and it's one of the ones that will send me flying, and it's getting really annoying. It's getting really really annoying because he's fucking sending me flying across the map, and
is it destroying your structure too?
It wasn't, but what it was doing was I had 4 hearts and it did 3 3/4.
And you might land in gloom.
No, there wasn't any gloom in this arena, but like it was enough that I was getting very frustrated, and it also meant I had to full heal every time, otherwise I would get hit again and die.
Yeah, that's why I got out of that area.
Yeah, and so I then was like looking around at what obstacles were left because some of the pieces, the building pieces, were getting knocked off the arena. I'm like, I'm running out of stuff. And I then see a single platform and 2 rockets, and he's got this much health left.
Right.
And I'm like, guess what? Like, we're going to the fucking moon. So I'm doing laps of this arena, and when I'm nearby,
so you're not getting hit.
And I'm attaching another piece and then doing another lap, and then attaching another piece and doing another lap. And then he gets all the other side of the map. I'm going to make a reference you don't understand. And he starts to fly directly towards me like the plane does in North by Northwest. And it's but like instead of in the movie where he runs, I like stare him down, like look at him, and we're like we've made eye contact, and I'm standing.
You play chicken.
I'm standing on this platform, and I've got my little hammer ready to hit the ground to send me up in the fucking sky, so I can then shoot him with a single arrow. And we get closer, and he gets closer, and I go to time it, and I hit it, and he fires a missile at me.
Yeah.
At the same time. And so the missile hits the platform and sends me off the side as the rocket platform just goes.
It just leaves.
And I'm limp on the ground watching my fucking rocket fly off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, what the fuck am I meant to do? Which was
I love that you were
so funny.
waiting, because like you didn't need to wait, but I love that you were waiting for this like moment.
I
He
could've-
just fucked you up.
I could have taken it and then glide, but like I wanted to get it on the yes end. And then it came back down, but the rocket
and the battery ran out.
Well, no, so the rockets disappear. Like they are like single hit. So you hit them, they will go, and then once they are done, they disappear. Which
Where did the platform come down?
it came basically back where it was, and so I had a platform again, and so I then like used a couple of my fans, sent me up, but it wasn't fast enough.
Yeah.
And so it sent me up to a point, and I then just jumped off and pulled up my melee weapon and like fucking like Valkyried over to it and like slammed on the thing, and there was enough shockwave on the enemy's flying machine to kill it, and it felt so fucking cool.
That's awesome. That's great.
So good.
I'm glad that didn't end with a whimper.
Yes. Yeah. It was
Alex
so
in
good.
the chat. Alex in the chat has apparently sent a lot of Koroks off to their friend
Oh,
with
yeah.
rockets.
Yes. Yeah. It's so good.
That was actually the very first bit of footage I saw for Tears of the Kingdom. Was like, like I didn't know those Koroks were there. I didn't know about rockets.
Yeah.
Like it was already attached, and it was so comedically done where they'd set it up and then they spoke to the Korok.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I need to go see my friend. They're just over there. And it was like a fair ways away. So kind of like down there as well.
Yeah.
And they hit him and they're just like, ah!
Yeah.
They're fucking gone, mate.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so funny. I haven't built really anything useful off the Sky Island.
Right.
I spent a while, like the first areas I found, I made a couple of skateboards. God, I hate I can't make him turn around yet. Like, I'm pretty sure you get a rudder, like, because like Link's holding something in that trailer, and then in this picture on the back of the box, that one like nuts and bolts machine that everyone was like, oh, you're gonna have a big steering thing, and like when he's in the sky, he like I can't wait to like steer something that I create.
Sure.
Because right now I'm just creating these wooden boards with 4 rickety wagon wheels, 2 fans on the back. And like it gets absolutely stumped by like a single step. I'm like, what the fuck? I can't turn. I'm just like, I get so like to the point where I just feel like, I'm gonna come back once this is all better. Like right now, this sucks.
Oh, it's so fun though. It's just like, because at that point, it's not about direction. At that point, it's how fast you can get.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't going fast either.
Yeah.
With just rockets, with just wheels and fans.
Yeah.
So there was something I did try. And because it also takes like ages, like 10 or 20 minutes, I was like, oh man, I'd rather be walking around myself now.
Yeah.
And then I found a stable. So then it's like, I'd rather just be on my horse.
Yeah.
But there was one that I made that was like, it was immediately after one of those sign puzzles where someone's making a sign for Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
And so I solved that puzzle, and then I wanted to make something. And I wanted to make like basically a skateboard, but it wasn't just stick 4 wheels onto one of those flat planks. I wanted to make like an A-framed. I wanted to make the frame out of those rigid like 2x4 logs.
Yeah.
Like, so I made like a teepee kind of frame, wider, stuck wheels on the end of it, put a platform on the top. I rode it, and as soon as and this took again like 20 minutes, and as soon as I got on it and was using it, I hated this thing. I hated it. It did nothing exciting for me at all. And I jumped off it and I lit it on fire with an arrow.
Yeah.
And I left.
Yeah. Like, bye.
I just like, fuck this. I'm out.
Yeah. I was on a bridge. Well, I was heading towards a bridge, and I saw sleeping on the bridge was what's the big ogre looking guys, like the boss ones?
Hinox.
Hinox. I saw my first Hinox in this game. This is less than an hour after I'd first gotten to Hyrule.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. Like I didn't even go to the main village yet. I just started exploring. I just looked around and I bumped into this. I'm like, fuck yeah, awesome, let's do it. Yeah. And next to it was like a bunch of building materials. I'm like, all right, like what contraption
can I do?
what am I gonna do? And so I built like the world's shittest tank, which was like basically like a cart with a bunch of fans on the back.
But then did you make like a building?
No, like a big front. And on that
okay.
big front, I put a bunch of flamethrowers
Nice.
facing forward.
Yeah.
And
True besiege.
And I hopped
stuff.
on, yes, exactly like Besiege. And I hopped on it and I went, charge! And as I did, my battery drained just enough to reach the Hinox, and the flamethrower stopped, and the Hinox just kicked it, and the entire thing blew up, and I died. And that was an hour. And
what, you built it for an hour?
I was getting used to the controls again. I was changing things up. Like, I was finalizing designs, and it was dreadful. And within seconds, a single kick. He, like, kicked me through it.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
That is so funny. That a valuable lesson learned. An ambitious design to try later when you have many more batteries, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes. What else have I done? I've made terrible gliders that fall. I've made gliders that act like one of my favorite things is putting together a machine and then it working, but in the opposite way of like, I made this machine to go directly forward that I can steer by moving across the glider. But I've accidentally made one that goes perfectly backwards.
Because the fans were the other way around.
Not even that, just like the way it's sort of like keeled over and tilted because I got the weight wrong. Suddenly it went perfectly backwards and I could steer it from the other side backwards because I accidentally failed upwards. There's so much like just like I'm at the top of a hill, I got to get to the bottom of a hill, like time to build a little box skateboard that I can just sit in and roll around in as I'm tumbling down this hill.
That's a good idea, actually.
A
little cage.
Yeah. Various structures that topple over the moment I need to get there, but topple over sideways enough that like actually this still works. Like it's not at all what I meant, but like I got there.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to having more robust tools and stuff at my disposal so far. Right now it is like those construction stations, they're too basic for me to make anything that I actually want to do. Also, like it takes nearly nothing for your, like if you build a skateboard and then you go into a cave and then you come out the other side and explore, and then you come like 10 minutes later, you come back, it's gone. Like it doesn't stay.
Yeah.
I wish that sucks. Or if you die, it's gone.
I wish there was more persistence across a lot of that stuff.
And so like all of that time you invested, even if it is something worthwhile, it's just gone.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that's keeping me from building something actually useful. However, there was one shrine, and I always make sure I look at the name because they always tell you something about it. And this one I glanced it because I was on my phone and I glanced it, and it was just called like constructing with logs or something like that. It was really basic. And it was like, use the log to climb up this thing that's a gap. And it's like, okay, I'll use the log. And it's like, oh, the logs will roll, but you have more of them. How will you make it work? And it's just like 4 of them.
Yeah.
But I brought all of the previous logs with me. And each area is giving me subsequently more and more logs. Not just like, here's another 2. Here's like if I got 2 last time, they gave me 4 next time. If they gave me 4 last time, they're giving me 8 here. And they give me 16 at the end. And I brought all of the previous logs with me.
Yeah.
And at the end, it gives you this big rafting area for you to get to. And you can go straight ahead to get to the end of the thing, or you can maybe you could build something that can steer or point in a certain direction to go get the chest on the side. And I stuck side to side every log that I brought with me. It was like 35 logs.
Yeah.
And it was almost the entire width of my working area.
Yeah.
And it was about half the width of this entire gigantic raft puzzle. And I put it in the water and I sent it towards the left side where the chest was. Jumped off, grabbed the chest, and it went a little bit forward. So I shot it and it floated back. And then I just got on one end, ran all the way across and then jumped off the other side at the end of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And that took ages, and I knew it was all going to happen the way it did, and I loved every second of it.
Yes. That's great. That's so good.
Yeah. That's nearly all of our prompts, Jeremy. I'm happy to talk more if you have other things that you have at the top of your head. I think I do have more to say, but I can't remember it all right now.
Yeah, it's been such a whirlwind 3 days basically since it came out, because it's just like so like it's been everywhere, right? And there's just been such a dramatic increase of like intaking this game.
Yeah. How has it been for you as asking this as someone who has stayed away from Twitter?
Yeah.
Who has muted Tears of the Kingdom and continues to keep it muted?
Yeah.
How have you felt playing this game and then also enjoying that content while being a part of it? Because I remember when Breath of the Wild came out, seeing those clips and not having the game. So I watched them, and it was a lot of funny things happening. And, you know, I got killed by this, or I thought I'd jump off, but I died, and like all of that. Like Breath of the Wild was everywhere for like 2 months straight.
Yeah,
what is it like for you with this game?
It's the same thing. Like it's everywhere. Everyone is playing it, and everyone is sharing incredible clips from it. Congratulations to Chris Person only. For having
his latest highlight reel was called "This Game Was Made for Me."
Yeah. He that man has no better job security than when a gigantic sandbox game that everyone is playing comes out.
Yeah. Good eats.
It is everywhere, and like I don't have enough. I'm not in enough Zelda fan circles to get any spoilers, basically, which is great.
So you're just seeing like cool shit.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that I would consider a spoiler. Like, you know, granted, I'm maybe more spoiler like agnostic than most, but like I've not seen anything that I think would be really that spoilery about important moments in the game or anything like that. Which is great. And so I've just been like online watching Zelda, go home, play Zelda.
Yep. It was funny when we I mentioned it at the very start of the podcast. I saw you this weekend, which is funny because we were this Zelda weekend, but it was a friend's celebration party this weekend. We had a picnic in the park. And I saw you, and I saw our friend Ollie and Will and Jane, and haven't seen you all I guess it hasn't been that long, but still nice to see you all anyway.
Yeah.
But I knew all of us were sitting there not playing Zelda, and when we left, we were all going to go home and play Zelda.
I had my Switch with me.
Yeah.
I didn't end up using it. But like, I was like, if there's a time, I would have brought it out.
Yep. Jeremy, that's actually something I could talk about that isn't Zelda. I'll do that right at the end of the show. Quick 5-minute story. So our final I myself have been quite glad to not be watching all that stuff. I'm sad that I'm missing a lot of it because it was fun seeing all that stuff. But I also know, I think I either said this to you or I said this to Sam at the time, like when we were playing through the Great Plateau a week or two ago, when I played through the Great Plateau for the first time, I already knew how Magnesis worked, you know, because I'd seen the E3 demo in 2016 and I'd seen people like break metal crates by dropping them on the other metal crate, and that like breaks both of them. And so like I'd already seen the solutions or like the creative ways to use those base mechanics in a way where I never got to make those discoveries myself. And so that's what I'm trying to steer clear of for a while. I want to make those discoveries for myself, like the bomb shield thing I told you about, you know. Having conversations like this is a bit more personal. I appreciate that a bit more. So I've been glad to sort of continue to stay away from it. I don't know when I will stop that. You know, I don't know when the point is going to be.
Yeah, the most amount of information that I've consumed about this game was the most recent trailer, which had a lot of like story beats and really cool moments showing up in the trailer out of context, but it's like stuff like a lot of
like a trailer.
There was a lot of new stuff in that trailer. That was the trailer to sell to people who weren't initially sold. And you know, like got smaller and smaller every time they showed that game, but like that was like that trailer sold copies of that game undoubtedly.
Do you think it sold millions?
That trailer?
Yeah. Do you think it's responsible for millions of copies sold?
maybe that's like an EB Games on the TV's trailer, but like a hype one. So like
Yeah.
probably maybe.
Yeah. It's also probably like if you're at EB, you get like 10 people come in that day, like maybe 10 orders to your store or something.
That's a stop and watch trailer at a shop. That it'll get your attention. That trailer belongs before a movie in a cinema.
Yep.
So probably. But yeah, and so like I think, and it's funny because like I keep going back and forth about marketing in media and about how much of it I attach to the product as a combined thing I'm consuming. A great example is Terminator and Terminator 2, which is like granted well before my time, but like I think that you appreciate that movie a lot more the first time you watch it if you understand the context behind the marketing behind those movies. Because Terminator 1 comes out, it's a thriller horror film starring Arnie. He's trying to kill Sarah Connor. That's the film, right?
Yeah.
Robot goes back in time, tries to kill person. Mother of John Connor, who leads a resistance in the future.
Yeah.
Terminator 2 comes out. Trailers of the film, spoilers for Terminator 2. The trailers of the film market it similarly to the first, where Arnie goes back in time, says like, I'm looking for John Connor, who is the son of Sarah Connor.
The whole point of why he went to kill Sarah was so that John never existed.
Yes, but it's a different Terminator because Arnie dies in the first one because the first Terminator gets killed. It's another one that gets sent back in time. And
it's a robot. Yeah.
It's a robot. And there's another Terminator who's a cop played by Robert Patrick who is also looking for it. But the film doesn't tell you that...
I mean, the trailer.
Sorry. The trailer doesn't tell you that Robert Patrick is the bad guy dressed as the cop and Arnie is sent back by humans to protect John Connor.
That's amazing.
Incredible, right? Truly great stuff.
What an amazing experience to get hyped by to enjoy the first one, to get hyped by the second trailer, and then the complete heel turn. And
Robert Patrick is so menacing in the film, but they both play robots and they both act the same. But he's so menacing as a villain that he's become a part of pop culture as a whole, larger than Terminator 2, that everyone knows in the movie that he's the villain.
Yeah.
But they don't even tell you that at the start of the movie. And so it wouldn't have been an immediate like, oh my God, like, you know, I can't, like, the movie begins with like, hey, we're sending back Arnold Schwarzenegger to save, John Connor.
Yeah.
The movie is... two Terminators show up at the same time,
and you don't know what they're gonna do.
And Arnie finds him first, and instead of gets the kid, and the first thing he does is stand in front of the kid, take the bullets from Robert Patrick, and then shoot Robert Patrick, and then you realize that Robert Patrick's trying to kill the kid, and that's like maybe a quarter of the way through the film, but there's like an entire suspenseful lead up, and you don't get that now because the market, like you know, like who watches old trailers for films before they watch it now? You don't do that. And so I have this ongoing battle of like, what do I like? You know, now more than ever, products and marketing are so intrinsically linked in a lot of ways, right? All the Marvel movies are it's all misdirection. It's all shots they've made directly for the trailers anyway, that they don't, half of them aren't even in the film anymore.
But also they want to sell tickets. So the second trailer gives you more story beats from like the final fight.
Yeah.
Scene.
Right. Yeah. And like, I think I have found it liberating to be happy to know a lot about something going in and still enjoy it, because I'm just at this point in more enjoying it for what it is.
Yeah.
But that does mean that those bigger reveal moments don't often hit as hard as it does for everyone else. Like the most recent Spider-Man is a great example. Like I went into that movie knowing that the 3 Spider-Men were in it. And so when they showed up, it wasn't like, oh, are they going to show up?
What do you mean you didn't cheer with the crowd around
I
us?
know. But like the idea that like I think like part of the reason I do that now is because I always want to reject the only I always want to reject the only way to enjoy it is to enjoy it for the first time.
Sure.
Because now what I do is the antithesis of that. Is if a movie goes too quick to catch up to what it's actually doing, not actually being very smart, you, like knowing all of that, you catch up very quickly.
Right.
But the first time I watched The Force Awakens, I was like, that was so clever and amazing and intelligent. And I watch it now, I'm like, this movie's actually kind of dumb. Like, it's still fine, but like it's
fine, yeah.
But it's like it's dumber upon rewatches.
It's a bit more like a roller coaster than it is a good Star Wars movie.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's funny. This Zelda trailer, I think, has overall improved the experience for me because I kind of use it as an overture. Like watching old movies, they would have 10 minutes sometimes where it's just like a painting and it says the word overture on it, and they will just play the soundtrack. Oh. They will play extended pieces of important music in the soundtrack.
Get you in the mood.
And also when they come up, it's familiar.
Yeah.
There's a level of like, and you know the sound and you understand where the music is going, which is fascinating. And I wish we did that. I love that so much.
Yeah, you kind of get that in IMAX when you go see a certain movie. They'll play
sometimes.
Like, I remember going to see Star Wars, and they'll play prequel music there, and
yeah.
But that's more of a like, here's the ones you know before the ones that you don't. It's not like a preview thing.
Yeah, and it's not decided by the director or the composer. That's just the cinema doing that. Whereas like the overture is like, we've picked specific pieces of music for it.
Yeah.
I think the last movie that I know that did that was The Hateful Eight, the Tarantino film. But that movie was very like, that's like a cinema focused film.
Yeah, and like an homage in production and release.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I wish games had an equivalent, I guess.
You want a cartridge.
I think the equivalent for games, I guess, is the manual.
Yeah, the manual. Is Tunic then?
Tunic would be a great example, right? And it's like, it's funny how much people are like, you included, like, I'm not watching anything. I don't need to know everything, blah, 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 blah. When you're a kid, and there were manuals in games, you never felt like you were being spoiled.
True. However, with a game like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, if I'd seen something that said, hey, try putting an explosive barrel on your shield and then shield surf on it, I would have done it. I would have been like, oh, that's cool. When it happened organically for us last night, and we went,
sure.
Whoa! Like, what a moment, you know? And that would have been gone with one Twitter video.
Sure.
It would have been completely unavailable to me after that point. Yeah. So,
but I also think that
it is hard.
I think it's different in that circumstance. One Twitter video not decided upon as the entire product.
Oh, sure. That is more or less what I meant, though, when I did bring this up.
Yeah. And I think in a way, like it kind of, it does go both ways. That I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, like I kind of wish I didn't know that because of social media, but like,
also it's still cool.
I've gone further on that scale than maybe I even want. That like I don't care about even just finding out stuff via social media. But like it depends on the thing.
Yeah, totally.
I do wish that games had a more specific, like, not like required reading prior to like watching it, but like, here's your appetizer.
Yeah.
Here's the thing to get you in the mood, because it's actually so important to have that. That Breath of the Wild trailer was that for me. The Twitter videos are not, but the Twitter videos are like, some of them are just so good that I'd be so sad if I missed these, because some of them are so fucking good.
Yep.
Going up the butt of that statue in the fucking underground is hilarious.
It's so funny. And like, of course, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course you're going to do that.
Jeremy, answer this one quickly because it's impossible to answer.
Sure.
So far, do you like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom more?
I don't know. I think they are gonna exist in different things in my brain, like in different areas of my brain.
Me too.
And
I think them being so far apart in time is very beneficial.
I think that I'm probably gonna look at these two as A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. It's like this is like, A New Hope, pretty simple, pretty like not by the book, but like it's like it is like you get it, what it is.
It goes there to do a thing and it does it.
Yeah. Whereas Empire Strikes Back, does a lot of stuff, and everything it does is pretty fucking good. But it's doing a lot, and it all comes together in the end, and it's great.
Yeah.
But it's different to A New Hope.
Yeah.
While still being the same.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's a really good analogy. For me, with my experience of this game so far.
Yeah.
Maybe it's got a Wolfenstein ending in there and it ruins the whole thing.
Amazing. I would love that.
Link tells Zelda to send the Guardians and bring Hyrule down onto Lorule, even though he's still down there. Even although he has time to get out.
Link gets his head chopped off and he gets attached to like the body of a moblin.
The hand becomes the protagonist.
Yeah.
It's just the Zonai hand.
Yeah. I have seen this game and I actually don't want. Well, I mean, like, I don't want an answer because we're not going to be able to answer this right now.
No, it's
but
completely impossible.
Yeah, but like, I've seen this game in conversation of like, like up there in terms of the best back-to-back releases of media.
Ooh.
Of media, Kerry.
Okay.
Of
all right.
media.
Right. So like photos and videos and film and music and comics, TV shows. Okay. So we're talking about Breaking Bad followed by Better Call Saul comparisons.
Yeah. Or like it can be as small as these 2 episodes of a TV show, right? Like it can be as small as that. Like but I've seen that conversation pop up and like it's been eating
that's
me
your brain
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like is it?
And that's the same. It's the same question with that Star Wars analogy you just came with as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So hard to answer too, because you don't engage with nearly any other piece of media for as long as you engage with not just games, but especially games these size, these games in particular.
But even
I can't answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, like no one can, but like it.
I don't think we'll have anyone who can answer that question honestly and truthfully this month.
Do you have a? Can you think off the top of your head? Yeah. And you can come back later and say, actually, I thought about these 7 examples, but like think about just games. 2 releases as
good as back to back in the same franchise.
Yeah, like one being the next iteration of another. Yeah,
not necessarily a sequel, but like the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. My first thought when you mentioned this was God of War, but I don't think I don't think God of War reaches the heights of Zelda.
Yeah. No.
2018 and Ragnarok are good, but they have their downsides.
Yeah.
Or Last of Us to Uncharted 4 or Uncharted 4 to Lost Legacy, those are pretty good. Those are up there.
Okay.
Genuinely, for me personally. What
I think that those are like top of their game, but I don't know. I don't think they reach.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like because they are so different, it is hard to know how they literally equate.
Yeah.
Because I don't get 120 hours out of them. And I don't think I could get 120 hours out of them. But not that time indicates all worth, but you know what I mean. These feel different. I say these and touch the game in front of me, but you can't see that on the camera or on the podcast. I feel like there's going to be one more equivalent, like one that's close to top of my brain. Maybe like Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know if they're sequential. Edmund makes so many games.
He does. He does a lot.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't have to be like sequential across the person making it, right? But like, you know, it's like in terms of like, you know, like this is not a good example because this is not the case. But like, you would say, The Last Jedi and then Solo. But you could also say The Last Jedi and Episode 9. Like, obviously not because this is not... But like,
right. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So not too prescriptive.
Yeah, like it's like more of a feeling.
Yeah. I just Googled Edmund and I started getting Wikipedia posts sent to me about some king
Great.
from the Middle Ages.
Awesome.
Turns out just Edmund isn't really enough to get me what I was looking for there.
Not at all.
Let me see. Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy was then followed by Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
Now, it's tricky because that is definitively the worst version of the Binding of Isaac.
What, the Flash one?
Well, yeah, the
first one. Right, yeah.
The first one is just it ain't it, you know?
Yeah.
I'd much rather play Rebirth, but it didn't come out that much later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the top of my head. Do you have any other game equivalences? Or are you just at a flat no, this is it?
Like, I'm not at a flat no, this is it, but like I'm struggling. Like,
yeah,
I think
it's a struggle.
I think Bloodborne Sekiro is up there.
Ooh, yeah, good call.
Because they're their own things while also being like, you know, cut from the same cloth.
Like evolutions.
Yeah. Like, I was trying to think of the Mario games, but there's always a weird one in between the main lines.
Yeah, like a re-release or like a Bowser's Fury.
Yeah, or even like a Mario 2 is like that game is fucking weird. Like, because I was thinking
like
of
Sunshine and
yeah.
What was before Odyssey? It was Galaxy 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Odyssey and Bowser's Fury is for me it's not there. Like Bowser's Fury is great. It's great.
Yeah.
This is not Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and like, you know, I think Shadow of the Colossus like is up there in terms of like top echelon of games. And like, I love Last Guardian with my whole heart. I don't think that's quite up there.
Yeah. I can't join Outer Wilds to anything.
No, exactly, right? Like that, like, you know, I was like, Outer Wilds in the DLC, like, no.
No. Maybe actually, but no, probably not.
Halo 2 and Halo 3 are pretty fucking good.
That's a good call.
And like maybe in contention.
Yep.
Halo 1 and 2 as well. Like a lot of the Bungie ones.
Yeah, nearly all of the Bungie Halos.
Yeah.
Maybe all of the Bungie Halos together can go toe to toe with these two Zeldas.
It's a pretty untouchable run that they had.
Yeah.
Actually, I might have one, but like you're gonna laugh a lot. It is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3.
Oh yeah, I will. That is one I just have to give to the industry. That is someone else's cross to bear. I'm completely like Tony Hawk agnostic.
And like 1 and 2 as well is probably pretty good.
People like 4.
I like 4. People don't like 4. I like 4.
Oh really?
I mean, like 4's fine. Like it's like, but no one's like that's the best one.
Oh okay, all right. No, that's that. So yeah, 2 and 3 or 1 and 2. Yeah.
Buddy in the chat saying GoldenEye to Perfect Dark, pretty good. Pretty good hit. Yeah.
Pretty good. Not quite as lasting, but that is why you wrote for its time in your message, which I think is apt. That's a good call. I was immediately drawn to other Zelda I can't believe we're still talking about this. I was immediately drawn to. You're right. This is a real nugget.
I told you.
I was immediately drawn to Zelda comparisons, and I thought of Ocarina of Majora and how I just don't click with Majora a lot of the time. I gotta get further into that game, but the start of it I don't think is very strong. Like Wind Waker to then Twilight Princess, but Twilight Princess has a bunch of issues. Skyward Sword has so many issues. And then the 2D Zeldas are good, but I don't love them. I don't love nearly any of them. I don't really love A Link to the Past. It's good. It's got too much of the things I don't like about Ocarina in it, though, which is how obtuse it is. Like, oh, you have to find this rod in this hidden dungeon, and then you use it on this cliff. It's like, why? It's like, you do. That's why. You do. And now you can access the 6th dungeon. Like, all right.
I think for my money, I still think that I like Link to the Past. I think is the best Zelda. Like it's close. Like there's a lot of good ones, but like
It's up there. Like I'll recognize that its quality is good, even if I don't like it as much.
Yeah.
I personally don't. I still don't think it's as good as the 3D Zeldas, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a whole topic we should do.
That's a second nugget.
Yeah.
2D versus 3D Zelda.
Yeah. We can finally hash that out.
Maybe that could be like a mini disc even, like, because that is going to require me to play more 2D Zelda.
Yeah,
Alex in the chat says, "Let's bash
Gary."
I was gonna say I could do without a bashing, but also like I've kind of avoided. I don't think I've ever been in a fight. Maybe I could do with a good fight. Maybe I'd be a better person for it.
Yeah, I've not been in I've not properly been in a physical altercation. It's been close, but we've not I've not thrown hands.
Yeah. Have you shoved?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really even shoved.
I shoved someone to the point that they punched someone else.
Nice one.
Yeah, I know. I felt pretty bad.
Final. No, that's it. That was from the final prompt.
A lot of the other franchises I was thinking of, there's always been some weird one in the middle. I was like, oh, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I'm like, there's a bad card game in between the two.
Yeah.
And I was like, Metal Gear 4 and 5. And I'm like, but there's like some bunch of weird ones in between there as well.
Peace Walker and Ground Zero is in between there.
And I was like, 3 and 4. Like, I don't know what's in between there, but like maybe, but also 4's a fucking whack game.
Yeah, 4 I honestly can't recommend to anyone.
Yeah.
Because it's only worthwhile if you've played the last 3.
Yeah.
Like it's just a good yarn, honestly. Like the gameplay of 4 is completely forgettable, honestly. So I have keep thinking, Jeremy. I'm gonna come in with this final anecdote that I remembered 20 minutes ago. After I went to this party in the park on Saturday and saw you guys, I went to my mum's house where my uncle who was from out of town was in town, and my brother and his family were in town. And I've been talking with my brother about this. I haven't ever been able to share games with my niece and nephew before. They're 6 and 8, or 8 and 6 respectively. And so I've been pushing Dan a bit more. I'm like, all right, they're old enough. Like let's just do it. Let's do this now.
And you put on Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah, I got wet and Mad World. No, I didn't do that. They have my niece and nephew. They have seen some of my videos that I've made for Animal Crossing. They're some of the only videos I can show them because otherwise it's like Halo and even Star Wars is maybe a bit much for them. You know, taking off stormtrooper limbs and whatever. My niece is also like quite sensitive to like antagonism in movies. Like we'll find Toy Story too much, you know. And to be fair, there's a lot of messed up scenes in Toy Story, so like that's fine. Like the bully and it gets quite intense. Anyway, point being, it's been a thing boiling in the background. Finally got to the point. Finally organized it. Finally did it this weekend, and I played some Animal Crossing with my niece and nephew, and it was so fun, and it was great to see their first experience and to have that with them. So I like started, and they wanted. I think I'd shown them the Switch before, and they wanted one of the controllers each, and I was like, I think you can use this on its side. You couldn't, but they just liked holding them for a while I got started and telling them that a game has to load. They're like, what's happening? Why is nothing happening? I'm like, we're starting it up. It's got to take a second. Animal Crossing takes so long to load.
It does.
And then, they're listening to Isabel talk and they're like, what did she say? I didn't understand her. I was like, oh yeah, no, they all talk in like gibberish. So like you have to read it, but like, it's all really cute, but she's like a dog and that's fun. And so when my nephew was playing, he was running around and he saw in the corner, one of the villagers, a penguin villager who I don't remember, with an umbrella because it was raining. And he was like, oh no, I want to go the other way. I don't know who that is. I'm like, it's just a penguin villager. You go talk to her. And he's like, oh, but what if she's like mean or something? I'm like, oh, there's only one way to find out. And he was like not having it. And then, but there was something else over there that was like cool. And he was like, but I don't want to go over there. I was like, okay, how about this? Why don't you hand me the controller? I'll go talk to the villager and we'll see if, I'll introduce ourselves. So like, that's the whole thing. And we did that and it was fine. And then we went back and he dug up like the golden, like the money spot for the day. And he was like, I thought maybe that penguin was like a baddie when I didn't see them. I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, no, there's no baddies in Animal Crossing. They're like, really? No baddies? I'm like, yeah, no. But
and then
it was also fun doing the like.
You then met a tarantula.
Yeah, I didn't say, well, there's bees and there's tarantulas. I left that bit out. But it was fun because it was raining in the game. I was like, oh, I got to find an umbrella. I was like, oh, I go into my storage and my house is full of cockroaches. And I'm trying to like pick them up. And then I end up picking up all my furniture. It's a complete mess. And then I couldn't find my umbrella. And then it was Heidi. It was my niece's turn. And so then I gave her the controller. I was like, you know what, Heidi, we could probably go to the store and buy an umbrella. And so that was the whole thing. But even just seeing them learn how to use the control stick, because that was kind of tricky. They'd look at the screen and they'd go a different direction than they meant. So it's like, oh yeah, so look at this. It kind of, if you want to go that way, you push it that way and you'll go that way. And so just sort of showing them a couple of times and them slowly getting a bit more comfortable with it. Just that first controller stuff that you forget when you play games heaps, but is like, it's a really important part of like anyone's first gameplay experience.
Yeah. I remember back in the days of not being able to do both sticks at the same time.
Yeah. And so, and even just like opening the doors, it's like, oh, I think because you're looking off to the right, it's not registering. And it was exciting for them and it was exciting for me. And it was a really good experience. I'm glad we did it. I mean, obviously I wanted to in the first place, but like that also being just a bit worried about whether they'd be scared by playing something. Having Animal Crossing there as an option is like a real godsend, because I can't even think about like Pokemon. You're catching wild animals and then throwing them at each other to fight to the death, you know, like realistically. Like Mario, you can always die at any point. There's always like, even in the first level, there's Goombas and there's Koopas, like, and then Bowser's all menacing in the sky, or even just like a bully. Like it's funny the way so many games are built on that sort of antagonism.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's kind of like all stories, right? That's true. There are not many stories that don't actually have like
conflict.
Yeah, for the most part. Like even stories in just music and nursery rhymes and limericks and stuff. For the most part, there's
Sound of Music and
I mean, Sound of Music
story.
Sound of Music's got Nazis in it. Like
sure does.
Like it's there's clear bad guys in that one. There's always turns out we figured out how to tell stories, and like Animal Crossing is a different type of thing. You know, like a good example, like an adjacent example that is probably a bit too old for them still, but like Stardew Valley. There's no like there is like bad things in there, and there's like you know there's a dungeon in Stardew Valley, which you don't have to engage with if you don't want to, and you can just do the farming.
Yep.
And you can just peacefully farm. Oh, God.
Yeah, totally.
So maybe it's Celeste time. Maybe it's time. Cool. Maybe it's time I go back. It's been about a year.
Only a year.
Oh
right?
No, it's been maybe about 2 years now.
Yep. That's cool. Celeste is there's not much conflict in Celeste. It's all that like internal, like emotional conflict. But there are scenes like where you're getting chased by the hotel keeper, and it's or even your shadow self, like that would probably scare them. So it's a funny world we live in. But I guess thank God for Animal Crossing.
Yeah, and you know other stuff like Mario Kart, right? Like you know it's
yes, that was the one other one I thought of.
Yeah, Guitar Hero. You know, like just like it's more like
let the player's the devil.
Yeah, he's you.
Yeah. So yeah, just wanted to share that. We're gonna finish the show now and go play Zelda. I recommend you all do the same. But thank you so much for listening, everyone. We really appreciate your company, whether you listen to us while playing Zelda or you haven't played it and you listened anyway. We really appreciate you. Next week, we are going to be doing, if it's not too late, we're going to be doing a discussion on a sort of a predictions episode for the E3 Summer Game Fest month ahead. We've got coming in June. It's coming up quick. It's the 15th today. So yeah, it's in like 3.5 weeks. There's a good chance that that rumored Sony showcase will happen soon.
Yeah.
In which case, next week might just be a reaction to that, but that might not be happening.
Yeah, the showcase is meant to be the big one. I think it might be a little bit early. I feel like if we've already heard rumblings, I think if we aren't hearing something right now about it happening at the end of this week, then I think it's not going to be this week.
Oh, these are the kind of ones where though they only give it like no more than 48 hours these days.
Oh
like,
yeah,
they tend to be like,
but I mean,
showcase on Friday, be there.
I think it's not yet. I think we'll hear a lot of it the week. Like we'll hear a lot of rumors the week it happens.
Oh, like we'll hear a demo was listed on the store for Friday.
Or like something like that, or like you know, like like a bunch of retailers got a bunch of like unnamed SKUs suddenly added to their their servers and stuff like some of that maybe.
We'll see.
As opposed to
nothing.
Yeah, I was gonna take a shot at David Jaffe, but like we'll do it in the first.
Yeah, let's leave him out of our podcast.
Yeah.
He's fine over there in his corner of the world where I don't listen to him.
Yeah, his imaginary corner with his imaginary problems.
So that's what next week will be about. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We'll probably also talk a bit more about Zelda. I don't expect like next week we'll definitely be talking more about it, but I don't expect that we'll be talking about it week after week after week after week. I would be surprised.
Yeah, I think
like maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, maybe we do a thing.
Yeah, maybe we do a Zelda thing, like a review in like 8 weeks.
I mean, how long are you planning on taking to... Oh, you'll take a long time to finish this game, won't you?
Sure will, buddy.
Man, it took you like 2 years to finish the first one.
Sure did, buddy.
Fuck. All right. See how we go. You don't have to finish
We'll see how we go.
You don't have to finish a game to review it. It's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you want to know when the episode goes live next week, be sure to follow our socials at MiniMapAU. You can follow us individually as well. Jeremy, where can they follow you on Twitter?
At Obi1Jez.
You could follow me on Twitter at KJPalmer_24. When I return to it, I will be posting Zelda clips that I've been capturing, like me getting shot out of the sky. You can also head to minimap.com.au for absolutely everything else Minimap related, including the Mini Disc podcast. We are days away, depending on when I finish Star Wars, from recording the Jedi Survivor Mini Disc spoiler story deep dive Game Club episode. That's what it's called, Game Club, with a guest. So that will be soon. We also have articles up on the site. For those of you who are live with us on Twitch, stick around. We're about to start the post show. We'll look at that other pre-order bonus, that coin. For those of you listening later,
yeah, check it out. Fucking get ready to fucking rip roar and look at a coin.
Look, I don't know what it is, and I'm excited to look at it, and we could do that with chat, and I'm gonna be excited. So
hold on to your butts.
Buckle in.
Buckle up, fucklehead. It's a Succession joke for you.
For those of you who are watching on podcast services or on YouTube, or listening rather, make sure to give us those ratings if you can, if you've got the time, the inclination. It helps us out a lot. And consider joining us next week. It's a good time for the live show. Lastly, if you wanted to, if you were able to, on Patreon, you could help us keep the lights and mics on. You could do that on patreon.com/minimapau. And for 5 Australian buckos, you'll get 24 hours of early access for all episodes of the MiniMapCast. Some other things we're cooking up for that site over there as well, all while helping us out greatly. Until next time, good luck in the sky and on land and under the land in Hyrule, and see you then.